So you're thinking about retiring early, maybe not like 45 with a beach house and a crypto windfall, but 58, 60, maybe 62. You've done all the hard work, you saved, you've run the numbers, but here's what most people don't realize. The moment you walk away from the paycheck early, the rules completely change. If you try to follow the same plan as everyone else who's working until 65 or 67, you could walk straight into some of the biggest financial mistakes of your life. In this video, I'll show you why early retirement requires a different playbook and how to avoid the traps that most early retirees never see coming. There's also one really big mistake I see early retirees make, and it's not what you think. But first, let's talk about 3 traps that lead people straight to it. Let's start here. If you want to retire early, most retirement advice isn't built for people like you. It's built for people who retire at 65 or 67 with Social Security on day one, maybe a pension, Medicare, and access to all of their retirement accounts penalty-free. If you're looking to retire in your 50s or even your early 60s, that plan simply doesn't fit for you. Think of it kind of like this. Imagine you were in the car going on a trip. You didn't know exactly where you were going, so you used Google Maps and you set the destination, but you did it for somewhere 10 miles away from where you're actually trying to go. You'll still get a route, but it won't get you where you're trying to get to. It's not the right route for you. That's exactly what it's like to retire early while following a traditional retirement plan playbook. It just doesn't get you where you want to go. Here's where those traditional plans fall apart for early retirees. First up, the healthcare gap. Everyone assumes that Medicare will be there for them at retirement. But if you retire at 60, you've got a 5-year gap to fill before Medicare will even kick in. That's not just a planning detail. That could be $100,000 or more in out-of-pocket premiums, deductibles, and care before Medicare even starts for you. The healthcare market is constantly evolving. The ACA, or Affordable Care Act marketplace, is a constantly moving target subject to the whims of Congress, and private pay health insurance plans may or may not be available or cost-effective in your area. That's a very localized thing. Now, like everything else in this video, this is not a reason not to retire early. I love retiring early. That's my whole thing as a financial advisor, but it's absolutely something that you have to have a plan for if you want to go early. Healthcare costs, especially for early retirees, are not a footnote. They are a must-have plan. A good advisor, especially someone who deals with early retirement on a daily basis, will have some connections, some resources, some people that they can introduce you to make sure that the healthcare plan doesn't sink the rest of your early retirement dream. The short takeaway for this one is if you want to retire early, your plan needs to lead with a strategy for healthcare, not leave it as an afterthought. Let's go on to problem number 2. The second big trap. Most people build retirement income plans assuming that Social Security will kick in early. But what if you retire at 60 and you want to delay Social Security to 67 or 70 to maximize benefits? Now, you've got a 7 or 10-year income gap to fill. And while generally I'm all for taking Social Security sooner than later, there are some specific planning scenarios where waiting is actually the right move. You've got to have a plan for when you'll elect and understand why you'll elect then. What's the point of waiting and how does it benefit you? And if that plan creates a long-term income gap between when you retire and when your traditional income sources kick in, you need to be ready to address it. Now, most people think that as long as they have assets, they've solved the problem. I have stuff, I have money, I'll just use some of the money. But this is a case where it's not just having the assets, but where you pull from and how much you'll pull that will determine your success. Without a good plan, withdrawals could trigger things like early retirement withdrawal penalties, higher taxes, or even faster portfolio drawdown, which could hamper you later on in retirement. If you're retiring before your traditional income sources will kick in, what you actually need is a bridge strategy, an income that fills the gap between when you stop working and when things like Social Security and pensions will kick in. Now, I did a video on building an income bridge not too long ago. This isn't a commercial for that, but it's a key concept if you're looking to retire early. The answer isn't just take distributions as needed and hope that it works itself out. Hope is not a strategy. I say it all the time. It's about segmenting specific assets to meet your income needs until your other, more traditional sources of retirement income kick in. Even if you're going to take Social Security early, you still probably have to build an income bridge to be able to get to 62 if you're going before that. If this is something you've been struggling with, I'll link that income bridge video at the end so that you can see the deep dive and how it works for yourself. Speaking of where to draw money from and when, that brings us to trap number 3. Most retirement accounts, 401ks, IRAs, things like that, penalize withdrawals before age 59 and a half. Now that's a 10% penalty on top of the taxes that you'll already pay for accessing this money because the IRS has decided that you have not reached full retirement age, even though you have decided you've reached full retirement age. Unless you're very strategic about how you access these funds, you're going to get hit with that penalty. And so while you may have a big old retirement account balance, large portions of your portfolio might temporarily be off limits unless you use the right strategies, which makes this, again, very different from someone who's retiring at a more traditional age. Now, I won't get into a ton of the specifics here. I did a video about this too recently. Imagine that. Here's what you need to know. If the lion's share of your portfolio is in to-be-taxed money, 401ks, traditional IRAs, 403bs, and you want to access that money to pay bills before 59 and a half, you're going to need to follow one of a few different very specific strategies to avoid the 10% penalty. The two primary options that you have for this are something called Rule of 55, or there's another strategy called a 72T distribution. Both are very specific and they have very special do's and don'ts, but both of them could be the answer that you're looking for if you need to access that to-be-taxed money before 59 and a half. I won't get into all the nitty-gritty details here, but if this sounds like you, stick around and I'll put the deep dive on penalty-free early retirement distributions at the end of this video as well. Now, I've given you some of the most common traps to watch out for. Here's a bonus tip. It's not a trap. It's actually a positive thing. It's a good thing, but it's also something you've got to have a plan for if you want to retire early, and that is this. The tax playbook flips for early retirees. Now, this one's a little bit sneaky because it doesn't feel like something you should want to do, but here's the scoop. When you stop working, your income drops because your paycheck goes away. Obviously, I don't have to tell you that. You probably already understand that. But that creates a golden tax window, a few years where you're going to be in the lowest bracket you'll likely ever be in again. Most people just ignore that. They're like, hey, I'm not paying anything in taxes, or I'm paying very, very little in taxes. And it feels good because you've been paying taxes for a long time. Nobody wants to pay more taxes willingly today than they need to, but that's exactly the wrong thing to do. That's what makes this one sneaky. See, we've been hardwired for years to minimize your taxes right now. How many times you get a call from the accountant who said like, hey, we can lower your tax bill this year if you make another IRA contribution. After all, you'll be in a lower tax bracket in retirement. And that's true until it isn't. And when it isn't, it's too late to do anything about it other than pay the tax man a giant chunk of your retirement money. The better route, especially for early retirees, is to strategically start to pay some taxes, whether through Roth conversions or realizing capital gains at a time when their rate is lower right after retiring because they don't have that paycheck anymore in order to lower their lifetime tax liability. From a planning standpoint, the goal is not to minimize your taxes this year. It's to keep as much of your money as you can instead of sending it off to your least favorite uncle, Uncle Sam. You do that by managing your annual tax liability to reduce future taxes. So if you're an early retiree, make sure that you got a rock solid tax plan to maximize this advantage. Don't waste it. Now let's zoom out for a second. Let's move on from the specific traps and pitfalls to that big thing that I mentioned earlier that can wreck your early retirement if you let it. And that is this. It's a mindset shift that has to take place to be able to pull off early retirement. You've outgrown the accumulator identity. And the moment you realize that, everything changes. Now, I see people fail to make this shift. Even though they tell me they want to retire early, they get stuck in continuing to do what they're already doing, not because they love it, not because they really enjoy their day-to-day, but because it's easy, it's fine. They'll just continue doing what they're already doing. If you're in your mid to late 50s or your early 60s, oftentimes that means that you're making more than you've ever made. Work is probably going pretty well. You don't get a whole lot of grief. The debts are paid off, and you see the money piling up and building up, and that feels really good. After years of struggling and working hard, it feels like you're finally getting the payoff. Here's the problem. The payoff doesn't come from a bigger pile of money. The payoff comes from using the money to live the retirement that you want, and people get that confused. If you know that you want to get on with retirement, but you feel stuck because you're trapped by thinking things like, I just need to wait one more year, or I'm just going to wait for the market to get a little bit higher, one more market high, and I'll be ready. One more reason to delay, and then I'll be ready to retire. Those sort of thoughts will keep you stuck thinking like an accumulator, just a little bit more, and I'll be all right. And sometimes that's a really tough shift to make. But if retiring early and starting to live your best life is the goal, you need to have a mindset to match that. It's no longer about growth. It's no longer about stacking up more money. It's about designing a retirement paycheck that works for you now, not waiting until the system gives you permission to feel like you're ready. If you want to retire early, you got to think like an early retiree. You're no longer the relentless accumulator. You're now what I call a purpose-driven retiree, and you deserve a plan that's built for that. So the short version of this whole video is, if you're thinking about retiring early, don't follow the usual plan. Follow the plan that fits you. That's why we built the Clear Vision Retirement Plan. That's what it is. It's a one-on-one plan designed specifically for the person that I'm talking to so that they can live their retirement on their terms. Click the link below to schedule a conversation with me, and we'll chat and see if we can get you a little closer to retirement than you may already think. And if you're looking for that income bridge video, or the video about early withdrawal, penalty-free distributions, I'll leave them both right over here for you. I'll see you on the other side.